You can't be serious. You filed a restraining order against a dog? She didn't even blink. He growled at me, Karen said. That constitutes a threat. I know my rights. No, she didn't, but I knew mine. And what she didn't know? I spent 34 years wearing a black robe and wielding a gavel. She picked the wrong porch to walk up to, and the wrong dog to call dangerous. We moved into Sycamore Bend 2 years after my wife passed. It wasn't my first choice, but the doctor said the ocean air might help the tremors, that fewer stairs would help my knees. And after decades of sentencing violent men and broken families to their consequences, I just wanted quiet. Sycamore Bend had tennis courts, smiling realtors, and a brochure full of words like tranquil, charming, and secure. What it didn't mention? Karen. Karen Witherspoon, Joe A. president, gatekeeper, and apparently self-appointed protector of the community from anyone who walked too slow, smiled too little, or, in my case, owned a 50-pound black Labrador named Teddy. Teddy isn't just a dog. He's certified, trained, a therapy animal. He was there when I fell in the shower last spring. There when I forgot where I left the car keys and panicked in the driveway. And when the nightmares came, old cases, old faces, faces I put behind bars, Teddy didn't ask questions. He just stayed. He never barked, never jumped, never bit. But he did growl, once, at Karen. It happened on a Tuesday. Teddy and I had just returned from our usual late morning walk. I let him off his leash in our front yard, well within my property line. He liked to roll in the rosemary bushes my wife planted before the chemo. As I was unlocking the door, I heard it. You, sir, your dog isn't leashed. I turned. Karen stood at the edge of my lawn, arms crossed, clipboard in hand like it was a loaded weapon. He's within our yard, I said, calm. He's not violating anything. He growled at me yesterday, she said. That makes him aggressive. No, he growled when you reached over the fence to try to pet him without asking. That makes him intelligent. Her nostrils flared. She jotted something down. You'll be receiving a formal notice. And don't think just because you're elderly that you're exempt from rules. I'm not elderly, I replied, brushing a leaf off my jacket. I'm retired. That's different. Same thing, she scoffed. No, it wasn't. The next morning, I received an envelope taped to my door. Not from the HOA, from the county courthouse. Temporary restraining order. Theodore, a.k.a. Teddy. Registered animal belonging to Arthur Langston. Claimed reason. Repeated threatening behavior toward plaintiff Karen Witherspoon, including growling, aggressive posture, and unprovoked lunging. Pending court hearing in 10 business days. I blinked. A restraining order against my dog? No incident, no bite, no attack. Just a growl. This was a woman who fined my neighbor for wind chimes that were too whimsical. Who once cited a couple for unapproved seasonal decorations because their kid drew pumpkins on the driveway in chalk. She lived for rules, bent them when necessary, broke them when convenient. But what she didn't realize? Some rules I wrote, and I had receipts. I spent the next hour gathering everything I'd need. Teddy's therapy certification, his clean behavioral history, security cam footage. Yep, I had installed one by the mailbox. My own medical documentation. And a signed letter from the very officer who had certified Teddy's therapy clearance last fall. But most of all, I dusted off the thick binder from my closet. The one that still smelled faintly of cedar and ink. My old bench book. See, when you're a judge, you're required to know certain procedural thresholds. What qualifies as a threat? What doesn't? What counts as malicious prosecution? And how easily a civil claim can turn into a defamation lawsuit when one person knowingly lies on a sworn statement. Karen had crossed that line, in permanent marker. 3 days later, she served me a smile while collecting her mail. See you in court, she chirped. And bring a leash next time. I smiled back. Oh, I'll be there, I said. But I think you'll wish you weren't. The court date came fast. They always do when you think you're the one in control. I arrived at County Division Hall C 20 minutes early, wearing the same navy blue suit I wore to my wife's funeral. Teddy stayed behind. By law, he couldn't be present under the restraining order, and that, for now, was the game Karen thought she was winning. She arrived 5 minutes late, clutching a leather folio, wearing pearls, of course, and smirking like she was walking into a PTA fundraiser. What she didn't know? Judge Collins and I had history. I didn't call in favors. I didn't ask for leniency. But I knew the moment he saw the case file, he raised one of those famously grizzled eyebrows and said, "You've got to be kidding me. They're suing Judge Langston's dog?" Still, fairness mattered. I never wanted the upper hand, just the truth to stand tall. And when the judge walked in, his robe swishing like a warning, Karen didn't recognize him. But I saw it, the flicker of recognition he gave me. Not bias, just history. A silent handshake between professionals. Case 486B. Plaintiff, Karen Witherspoon. Defendant, Arthur Langston. Allegation. Defendant's animal exhibited aggressive and threatening behavior without provocation. Plaintiff is requesting permanent restraining order. Karen stood and began her performance. Your Honor, I'm not someone who takes safety lightly. As HOA president, I represent hundreds of residents who trust me to uphold peace and order. But this dog, this beast, growled at me. Twice. Once while I was walking by, and again when I simply paused on the sidewalk. She feigned a breath like the memory still haunted her. I feared for my safety, and I worry for the children who ride their bikes nearby. No children had been present, but she knew how to drop the right buzzwords. I only filed this out of necessity. I'm not trying to hurt Mr. Langston personally. I simply want to protect the community. She sat with a delicate nod, as if she'd just petitioned God for mercy. Judge Collins raised an eyebrow, then turned to me. Mr. Langston, your response? I stood slowly, unfolded a folder, held it like scripture. Your Honor, I'd like to submit 3 items into evidence. I stepped forward and placed them on the desk. Teddy's federal therapy animal certification, my personal medical records from the VA, a USB drive containing footage from my security camera, and there it was, Karen, marching up to the fence, clipboard in hand, leaning over the boundary line, reaching toward Teddy, who sat, calm and still. Only when her hand neared his muzzle did he growl. Low, one time, no lunge, no bark, just warning. Then Karen backed away and scribbled something on her clipboard, smiling. The video ended. Silence followed. I turned toward the judge, my voice never raised. Teddy responded exactly as trained. A defensive growl, no aggression, no pursuit. Under California Statute 3342, this does not constitute a threat. Under federal ADA regulations, he is protected from discriminatory action by housing authorities and neighborhood associations. Then I held up a single page. This is a sworn letter from Officer Myra Beckett, who certified Teddy for my medical care. It confirms that any such behavior within property lines, particularly in reaction to unsolicited contact, is both expected and protected. Finally, I looked directly at Karen. And finally, Your Honor, I'd like to note that the plaintiff submitted this complaint under penalty of perjury, claiming I and my animal posed a danger to others. That claim is not only false, it's demonstrably malicious. Ms. Witherspoon, do you have any evidence to contradict this video footage? Karen froze. Her lips parted, but no words came. Finally, Collins exhaled slowly. The restraining order was dismissed. You don't realize how fast word travels in a gated community until you watch a woman try to control the narrative and lose grip of it in real time. It started the morning after my defamation countersuit was filed. Karen's usual 6:45 a.m. Power Walk looked different. Gone was the smile. Gone were the tennis whites and clipboard. She wore oversized sunglasses and kept her head down, like a guilty senator on court steps. Neighbors stopped waving. Some began whispering. 2 residents on the HOA board resigned quietly that week. And that Friday, a note was slipped under my door. Handwritten, no return name. We didn't know. She said you were unstable, that your dog was dangerous. We believed her. I'm sorry. A neighbor. I didn't need to know who sent it. Because I'd just seen Karen's car pull out of the garage at 2:15 p.m., and at 2:20, Channel 9 pulled in. I never contacted the press. But it turns out, when someone files a restraining order against a therapy dog, then gets countersued by a retired judge, you don't need to make phone calls. They find you. The news crew set up discreetly on my lawn. They weren't invasive, and I agreed to one interview. The anchor asked me the question I knew was coming. Now, what would you say to the people who think Karen just made a mistake? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I just said, mistakes are corrected. This was calculated. She weaponized rules against a dog. What do you think she's done to people? That night, the story aired with the headline, The HOA president accused of retaliating against retired judge's therapy dog, and underneath it, a photo of Teddy, lying in the rosemary bush, smiling. The footage was simple. The security video, the courtroom sketch, and my quiet voice telling the world what happened. But that was all it took. By Monday, the HOA emergency inbox received 60-plus resident complaints. A petition for Karen's removal was circulating, and the district attorney's office opened an inquiry into misuse of authority by HOA leadership. Karen tried to fight back. She released a 3-paragraph statement to the community, and I acted in accordance with my duties as HOA president and out of genuine concern for safety. I regret that certain parties have mischaracterized my intent, and I reserve the right to protect myself from further slander. She posted it on the neighborhood bulletin board. By the next morning, someone had taped a dog biscuit to the center of the page, with a Sharpie note, "Teddy is safer than you are." The civil case began in earnest the following week. My lawyer, a young firecracker named Marissa Kwan, didn't hold back. She produced email threads from HOA group chats, ones where Karen referred to me as a problematic occupant and potential liability. One email read, "We should consider escalating reports on the dog. If he makes one more sound, I'll handle it." Another, "The judge title doesn't scare me. He's too old to fight this in court." Marissa looked at Karen during deposition and simply asked, "Do you deny writing these?" Karen blinked. I don't remember that phrasing. "Do you deny the emails?" No, it was over. Even her own attorney looked down. We settled the civil suit before trial. Karen was ordered to pay $75,000 in damages, issue a formal apology posted in public areas for 30 days, step down permanently from the HOA, and accept a 1-year no-contact injunction with me and Teddy. She complied, legally at least. But emotionally, she was ruined. I watched her move out 5 weeks later. No goodbye, no neighbors helping, no second chances. She closed the trunk of her silver sedan with one sharp motion and left Sycamore Bend forever. I wasn't happy, I wasn't celebrating, but I felt peace. Teddy and I resumed our walks. No more glances, no more whispers, just fresh air and the rosemary, and that quiet sense that something broken had finally been set right. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it growls, just enough to make the abuser back away. You don't move to a place like Sycamore Bend to make enemies. You move here for the lemon trees, for quiet mailboxes, for rules you think will protect you from chaos, not deliver it straight to your doorstep. I didn't come here to make noise, but I was done being silenced. Weeks after, Karen moved out. The HOA board held its first full in-person meeting since the incident. I didn't plan on attending, but Teddy, of course, had other ideas. He stood by the door when I reached for my keys, sat, ears alert, tail still. "Really?" I asked. "You want to go to the scene of the crime?" He barked once, soft, almost like a sigh, but decisive. I leashed him, and we walked down the cul-de-sac together, slow but steady. The meeting was packed. People stood along the walls, fanning themselves with rule books, whispering in little clusters. Terry Malone, now acting HOA president, tapped the mic. "Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge a few things. First, the board deeply regrets the actions taken against Mr. Langston and his service animal. What happened wasn't just inappropriate, it was cruel. And more importantly, it was preventable." She paused. I felt a dozen eyes turn toward me. "Now we let power go unchecked. That ends tonight." Polite applause followed, but not everyone clapped. Some folded their arms, some still sat stone-faced. Not because they disagreed, because they were embarrassed. They'd watched Karen spiral for years and said nothing, and that silence had cost them something. The board introduced new oversight measures. No single person could file formal violations without second-party review. Pet-related complaints now required video evidence, not just statements. ADA training for board members was now mandatory. And perhaps most interesting of all, we've created an advisory committee for residents who've worked in public service, law, medicine, military, education, people who know the weight of consequences. We've asked Mr. Langston to chair it. The room turned toward me again. I didn't rise, just nodded. Because power means nothing if it isn't shared, and I wasn't interested in power. I was interested in truth. After the meeting, a younger couple approached me in the parking lot. Maybe early 30s, newer house. Their toddler clung to the woman's leg, holding a juice box. The man extended a hand. "Thank you," he said. "Our kid has a speech delay. We were afraid to say anything when Karen started warning people not to let their children disrupt the aesthetic." The mother added, "We thought about moving, but now, maybe we'll stay." Teddy licked the child's hand. The kid giggled. That was the loudest statement of the night. The next day, I got a package in the mail. No return address, just a single sheet of paper inside, typed. You beat me. I still don't think I was wrong. But I never understood what Teddy meant to you until I saw that interview. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope the dog lives a long life. At the bottom, K. No apology, but not cruelty either. Just honesty, maybe for the first time. Teddy's tail has started wagging more lately. He sleeps easier, eats better. And me? I've found a rhythm again. Mornings on the porch, evenings by the fireplace. Quiet, but never alone. Sometimes neighbors pass by and wave. One boy brought Teddy a chew toy shaped like a gavel. We kept it. And one woman asked if I'd be willing to speak at her law school class about the incident, about legal misuse and soft forms of abuse. I said yes, because some lessons don't come from textbooks. Some come from rosemary bushes and growls that tell you everything you need to know. I keep Karen's original restraining order in a drawer, not out of spite, but as a reminder of how fast systems can turn against the innocent and how important it is that someone, anyone, knows how to fight back. Because truth, when it's quiet, gets mistaken for surrender. But truth, when it stands, it changes everything. The strange thing about peace, it never announces itself. It doesn't come with fanfare, no parade, no email saying, "Congratulations, the fight is over." It shows up in smaller ways. Teddy curling beside me without flinching, sunlight hitting the kitchen table just right, the rosemary bush finally blooming again after a cold spring. I didn't notice when the tension left my shoulders, but it did, like a courtroom finally empty, like a gavel already fallen. 1 month after the case closed, the HOA invited me to speak at their quarterly town hall. I almost said no, but then I saw the flyer. Special guest Arthur Langston, on fairness, fear, and fighting back. That word fear stuck with me, because that's what this all came down to. Karen wasn't driven by hatred. Not really. She was driven by fear of losing control, of being ignored, of being irrelevant in a world that was moving faster than her rules could keep up. Fear makes people do small things, petty things, desperate things. And if nobody calls it out, it starts to feel like power. So I said yes. The auditorium wasn't packed. Just neighbors, folding chairs, a few people I recognized, a few I didn't. Terry introduced me. I stepped up, cleared my throat, and began. I'm not here to talk about Karen. I'm here to talk about what happens when we all become Karen, even for a moment. When we let fear speak instead of reason. When we choose silence over truth. When we decide our comfort matters more than someone else's dignity. The room was still. Even the kids stopped fidgeting. Teddy's just a dog, but he taught me something most courtrooms never could. You don't have to bite to protect someone. Sometimes all it takes is standing firm and refusing to move. They clapped, not loudly, not like a performance, just respectfully, like they understood. Later, a man approached me quietly near the coffee urn. Big hands, quiet eyes. You sentenced my cousin 20 years ago, he said. Armed robbery. He said you were fair. Said you didn't talk down to him. I never forgot that. He shook my hand. I didn't know what to say. Some consequences don't come back to bite. Some come back to thank you. Teddy turned 10 this month. Still runs like he's 5. Still acts like he owns the front lawn. But I've noticed the naps are longer, the jumps take more effort. And so we cherish every walk, every nudge, every soft sigh beside the fireplace. Because time has a way of reminding us what really mattered and what never did. I still get letters. One came last week from a woman in another state. Saw the news story online. My HOA fined me for putting a wheelchair ramp in front of my home. Your story gave me the courage to fight back. Another from a teenager whose school rejected her service dog. My dad showed me your video. He said you're what backbone looks like. These are the moments that keep me going. Not the lawsuit. Not the headlines. Just the proof that when one person says, enough, others realize they can too. Karen? Last I heard, she moved in with her sister 3 towns over. I don't check. I don't care. I'm not angry anymore. Because anger requires energy, and I'd rather spend mine planning something that will outlive both of us. I've started a garden. Nothing fancy, just a small one. Behind the fence where HOA rules can't reach. Tomatoes, basil, 2 sunflowers that seem determined to hit the clouds. And right in the middle, a small brass plaque. But for Teddy, who kept me from going under. I didn't need a monument, just a reminder that even the quiet ones, and even the old, tired, overlooked ones, can make noise when it counts. And when the wind moves just right through the rosemary past the sunflowers, brushing the grass just so, I still hear his steps, still feel that presence, still believe that justice, when it's real, leaves something behind, not to be feared, but to be respected.